You know, I'm sure you've heard about it by now. They say that some people are Bugs Bunnies and that other people are Daffy Ducks. You might have heard it about managers and elections and really just everyday people in everyday life. The people who smile through all the adversities and hardships, tell funny jokes, smile charismatically, and always find a way to get what they want. Those people are Bugs Bunny. Am I right? The others who take everything personally, get their feathers easily flustered, and are quick to blame the world about their own personal shortcomings. Yeah, those are Daffy Ducks. As for me, I was one of the board execs who bandied about ideas for 21st century Warner Brothers franchises. A mysterious man in a monocle and top hat, who I recognized as one of our more influential investors, pitched an idea at one of our board meetings: a show entirely about Daffy Duck. Well, I thought that was odd. Daffy's always more of a second banana, like Robin to Batman, or if you prefer to keep it duck related, Donald to Mickey. And yet, everybody sitting around the table had a twinkle in their eye and okayed the project. Was it because the man was rich and influential? Or maybe, just maybe, because he himself was a Bugs Bunny? No bones about it, Doc. He was up to something. This is where it all begins. The lost episode starts out with Daffy looking disgusted and disgruntled. He's walking around with a bindle above his shoulder. If you don't know what that is, they're blanket sticks hobos carry around to hold their stuff while they search for their next habitat, food, shelter. Daffy clearly hadn't taken a bath in weeks, as the flies swarmed around patches of swollen, reddened skin with mangled and missing feathers. It was implied by the feathers around Daffy's beak that he'd been eating his own feathers. A sign of desperation? Anxiety? Poverty? Daffy wandered into the one stop employment center looking for a job. The outside building was dilapidated: rusted boards, broken windows. A human child kissed a rock and then tossed it into a window. I did not know why he kissed that rock. At least not yet. Daffy sat down inside of the employment officer's office. The man was wearing a tuxedo and smoking a cigar. He blew the cigar smoke in Daffy's face. Although the smoke poured into Daffy's nostrils cartoonishly, and likewise his face turned green in the suggestion of him puking off screen. They were of a typical exaggerated Looney Tune slapstick variety, but something just felt unsettling to me. I felt an aggressive pretzel knot tie and take hold in my stomach. You see, Daffy, the officer waved his hands around shallowly and pedantically. Here at Acme Acres Factory Company, we're like a family. And you know what families do. They watch out for each other, brother. Watch over the widow and feed her children. The dignified looking man face palmed to that response to Daffy's. He clearly was cringing at Daffy's naivety. No, you stupid mallard, look at the sign. A white gloved finger pointed to a Gothic rimmed post, a plaque ornamented with sinister looking gargoyles and vampire bats with fangs. He read it out loud as if Daffy was too uneducated to read. The strong must take what they will, the poor must suffer as they must. Daffy's response was clear as day. He turned red in anger, shaking a fist. An animated steam whistle blew out of his head as if to release the pressure from his rage and prevent him from going on a rampage. You're despicable! Daffy exclaimed, grabbing pens, erasers, staplers, and the world's number one psychologist mug off of the man's desk and heaving them all against the floor as the mug cracked into tiny marble pieces. Daffy stormed out of the office. The patronizing voice of the man, however, could be heard off in the distance. You'll find out the hard way. Now, at this point, I wasn't necessarily offended, but this didn't seem anything like what I'd come to expect from the Looney Tunes. I considered shooting an email to my boss with a nuanced critique of what I just watched and why no child would ever go for it. And given there were still several minutes left in the short, I figured I should give the rest of it a fair shake. So I continued on, but in hindsight, that was the worst decision I could have made. Daffy stepped out of the employment center with frayed feathers, clearly displeased, unsettled, frizzled, and unkempt. His eyes vertically narrowed but horizontally widened in the way they are known to, as if they were pulled apart, like Stretch Armstrong's being pulled apart by a real life Austrian bodybuilder. I gulped in anticipation of something going horribly wrong. I knew something wasn't right. And I was proven correct as right from the shattered window above, and between the shards, an enormous glove. An anonymous glove character with Mickey Mouse arms dropped an anvil right out of the window. 10 tons was written on the side of it in Gothic lettering as it smashed Daffy Duck right on the top of the head. A massive lump formed out of his skull as stars swirled around his eyes, and the lump kept growing faster and faster, shooting higher and higher, past the window, past the roof of the building, and off into the stars and space in the greater depths of the Milky Way galaxy. Just then, fireworks went off into the air. They were in a burning bright red. No one understands my pain, it read, in all capital letters. I took a bite out of my chicken sandwich, paused the tape, thought about it for a couple minutes. No, no, I didn't get it. So I resumed the footage. After being stuck on a still image of the firework message for several seconds, the screen turned to static and jumped around like uh, grayscale black and white bees till footage emerged of a rich man in a limousine telling his Jeeves like driver to stop the car at the red carpet entrance. Cameras went off, clearly reporters for the local papers. A blue haired woman shrieked in delight, fainted, and a middle aged white haired man standing next to her pulled off her dress and snatched her wedding ring. The rich man walked with a cane, took a puff of his cigar, and blew smoke in the face of the knocked out woman. He grabbed her wrist and checked her pulse. She's dead, he stated callously, matter of factly. Good. The other man threw on her dress, put on some lipstick that he swiped from her strewn about handbag items, and kissed a rock that he picked up from a muddy puddle on the ground. The strong will take what they will, he said in some sort of like high pitched fake feminine voice. Then he French kissed the rich man. The rich man grabbed him, her. I'm sorry, I don't know which word I'm supposed to use here, but I'm happy to use the one, whatever the right one is. They waltzed down the carpet to a slowed down version of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Just then, from the far reaches of outer space, anvils could be seen falling onto the heads, one by one, of each and every one of the several hundred people standing around what I presume was an award show carpet, as each and every last one of the bystanders suffered gigantic lumps on the tops of their heads that stretched off into the farthest reaches of space. Even animated, this was disturbing. There was more static, more jumping around to the video quality, and black and white little bee like creatures again. Dot matrix dots? The final scene, or what I hoped was the final scene, then came in of Daffy Duck in a hospital bed with gigantic bandages like a cartoon mummy wrapped around his head. I don't know how the lump disappeared, but then again, it was a Looney Tunes cartoon. There was a knock on the door. You may as well come in, Daffy muttered under his breath. The door slowly creaked open. I'm assuming in purposeful suspense. A pants leg that stretched down the tips of his blackened, clearly shined dress shoes, and a slow pan up. Yep, it was the employment center manager again, who sure looked an awful lot like the rich man in the other clip. Probably was him. I have come to bid my regards, the man stated with a half smirk out of a corner of his mouth. Something felt wrong here. You have come to mock my pain, Daffy retorted. Not at all. I have come to set you free. Huh? Just then, the rich man. I couldn't believe it. I know I didn't see it coming, but the rich man grabbed a pillow from the stack behind Daffy Duck's head. And by gosh, by golly, he was suffocating Daffy Duck to death with a pillow. Wait, what are you? Suffering succotash! What are you? It's just what the doctor ordered, Daffy. The man pinned the pillow down so hard against Daffy Duck's head, defying all logic because the bandages should have been choking him to death anyway. But then, Daffy spasmed. He struggled. His arms and legs waggled and struggled in the air, again in a cartoonish Looney Tune style, but it still felt wrong. Eventually, it stopped. The struggle was over. Daffy Duck was dead. The man shed a single teardrop. Then he took out a tiny micro-sized pocket knife from his suit's breast pocket and cut open a tear in the pillow. $100 bills and massive Eisenhower dollar coins poured out of the stuffing until the whole room was flooded in finances, and the man went for a swim in the stuff as if he was Scrooge McDuck, spitting up coins and doing the doggy paddle and backstroke. Ugh. Finally, there was a knock on the door. Now, you might expect the rich man to be alarmed and try to hide in the currency because you've been caught in the act of bloody murder. But nope, that's not what happened. The door slung wide open, and as some of the money poured out into the hallway, blood money poured on in. That is to say, actual dollars and cents caked in crimson liquid. The image of the new character slowly faded into view, almost like an appearance of an alien hologram. But the character appearance was anything but alien. It was Bugs Bunny, dressed in drag in a nurse's outfit. Nurse Bugs pulled a carrot out of her pantyhose, which nurses are not known to outwardly wear, and she began to nibble as her rabbity whiskers twitched. What's up, Doc? The typical Looney Tunes melody plays, the one in which it's about to go to credits, but there were no credits other than repeated loud typewriter keystroke sounds and the currency symbols of every country all around the world, printed out one at a time, streaming and writing over the other until the tape became staticky yet again, and everything finally came to a merciful end. Well, Almost. Listen, I was in shock, wide eyed, unable to lift a single muscle. So I caught what must have been half a second of infamous Looney Tunes dim witted hunter Elmer Fudd pointing a gun right at the screen as if he was aiming to shoot the viewer. He smiled, scowled, his eyes fierce like a leopard ready to strike. And then there was a bang. It wasn't bullets or a massive mound of gunpowder or anything like that. It was blood money. More and more blood money, and it became pure liquid, pure blood and guts before it soaked up the entire room and expanded upward and upward until Elmer Fudd's expression turned to panic. This was not in the script, he mumbled before going, "Look, look, look," and and Elmer Fudd struggled and flailed and drowned before his lifeless body floated up the screen somehow, and the word Finn displayed in cursive penmanship, right on screen before the tape finally did finish for good. I'm proud to say that after all that, I did write my email, but I never got a response. My boss ignored my follow ups at first before telling me just not to worry about it. Eventually, the thought of the episode faded from my mind, and I allowed my employment with Warner to progress until my contract ran out. But I'll never forget that farewell postcard I received in the mail. It was Daffy Duck, with clearly hypnotized, spiraled out black and white eyes, surrounded in piles of physical Bitcoin tins, resembling of stones piled up to the ceiling, and there were lip marks on it, like from lipstick, and Warner Brothers Shield logos decorated on them, in addition to the Bitcoin emblem. In professionally written cursive writing, it clearly read, "Mine, mine, mine. Kiss the rock that eludes you but controls your life. Satoshi Nakamoto." A tiny icon of Daffy Duck's beak coated in fecal matter around the lips followed, with an Illuminati pyramid eye sigil adorning it with lipstick marks on it.